Alright, so for this review, there's a lot of shit to talk about, okay? Because this is just a warning in advance. This movie has been out for a while now, and there is so much going on in this movie and so much to talk about in this movie that I'm just letting you guys know in advance that, the video may be a little longer than what I'm aiming for. Anyway, let's just get into it. So this movie has some good points, has some bad points, but what I love right off the bat with this movie is they're bringing the Avengers back, and I love seeing the thing that they haven't lost is the chemistry with these characters, whether they're in conflict with one another, whether they're teaming up and all on the same page, or whatever it is that they're doing. They're writing for the characters, and their interactions are just good. I love seeing them interact with each other, and especially that party scene. That was just a great laid back group moment. It was good. So concerning that, the characters and the writing for them, and even the performances, that whole aspect is good. All right. So now that I've got that out of the way, I want to move on to Ultron. As far as I'm concerned, he is one of the MCU's best villains. But I do have a couple problems with him. But firstly, I just want to say, I want to give credit to James Spader. He is such a good actor. I haven't seen him in that many things, but I know he's a good actor. I've heard a lot about him, and seeing him in this, he does a really good job in this movie. He is so good, and I just want to, take the time to give him that credit. He is so good in this movie, and the things that I liked about Ultron is that he was darker. He was dark and menacing and stuff, but the one thing that surprised a lot of us that saw the movie is that he was quite sarcastic. He had a little bit of a humorous side to him, and that came as such a surprise to me. And he was actually a little funny, and he wasn't like the cliche dumb villain. Like, he doesn't stand there explaining his plan to you, and he doesn't just stand back and let his cohorts do the fighting. He actually does fighting. He actually joins in on the fight, and he actually doesn't explain his plan. They steered away from a lot of cliches. So I like him because I like this cinematic incarnation of Ultron, because they didn't go the cliche villain route, and the performance behind it was just so good. Like, it draws in. But the only problems that I had with it, I've narrowed it down to two, like, actual problems. The first one is that he felt a little rushed. He, like the rest of the movie, was kind of a little rushed. And we first actually see Ultron in his weak, fragile state when he meets up with the Avengers in Avengers Tower, when he threatens them and all that stuff. And I liked him as the weak, fragile version, but then in literally the next scene that he's in, he is in his full Ultron suit and everything. That, for me, felt a little rushed. I would have liked to see the weak and fragile Ultron beat the Avengers, because that way it puts it into perspective of just how dangerous he is. Because even in his, like, if they were to do that, use the weak and fragile Ultron to beat the Avengers, that would have just, like, brought a real fear toward the character of Ultron. Because if a weak and fragile thing like that can beat the Avengers, then it makes his evolution to the iconic Ultron suit that much more tense, I guess, or more exciting. Because if they were to do it like that, then he'd come across even more threatening when we finally do get to that iconic Ultron suit. And the other thing is that Ultron wasn't really acting on his own. He was kind of a puppet to Thanos without even knowing it. Because in the at the end of the movie and in the post-credit scene, we realize it's shown to us that Ultron was just following along in a plan that is beyond all of them. So Ultron kind of became the puppet of the real villain that Marvel wants to get to, and I didn't like that. I wanted him to be all on his own. But despite those two kind of major problems, he is fine. He's kind of great. The performance, you can't question the performance. It's good. So Ultron has he's kind of like 50% good and 50% bad. Okay, so there's this one nitpick that I have with the movie, and it's a relationship thing. Okay, so in Captain America the Winter Soldier, I thought they were leading toward Romanoff and Rogers getting into a relationship, because that's what I've seen from the cartoons. I even thought that Black Widow and Hawkeye were going to hook up eventually, because I kind of thought that they were a thing. But no, in this movie they bring Black Widow and Hulk together. Natasha and Bruce. I didn't get that. Like, fine, it's okay if Bruce Banner didn't already have a love interest in the MCU with Betty Ross. And Betty Ross is Bruce's #1 love interest, like Batman to Catwoman. It didn't feel right to me, because of the fact that Betty Ross is his #1 love interest, and also because they did do that in the movies. So why would you then completely abandon that for this movie? I don't know. I didn't like that at all. Okay, so really quickly, I want to get this out of the way. The 3 awesome new additions to this movie were Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision. Really quickly, it was fun seeing a second version of Quicksilver from the first cinematic incarnation in X-Men Days of Future Past. It was fun seeing a different version. You know, the way, the trail behind him when he runs, the country that he comes from, all that. It was different, and I liked seeing 2 different Quicksilvers. It was fun. And Scarlet Witch was great. I have to say, Scarlet Witch, like, Quicksilver in this is great, but Scarlet Witch is just so much better, and I'm glad they kept her alive. And also, keeping her alive allows her and Vision to get together, so that is also great. Speaking of Vision, he was awesome. Finally get to see Paul Bettany actually act in the MCU. He's great. I didn't know he was such a good actor. He's so good, and I love Vision. Okay, so this movie does have some problems. Its 2 biggest problems I'm going to get to, now. The first problem that I had with it is that this movie has too much humor. It has too much humor for a movie that we were told was going to be darker and more serious than the first one. But what ends up happening is it tries to balance out a darker tone, a darker and more serious tone, with a lighter and more comedic tone. It tries to balance those 2 tones out when you can't. You can't have it both. You can't have one movie have equal amount of seriousness and comedy. You can't have that. It just, like, you could see the movie trying to be serious and trying to be darker than the first one, and we all saw that from the trailers, but it's kind of cut short by them putting jokes in the middle of every action scene. And by the way, the action scenes in this movie are littered with jokes. Joke after joke after joke, and I timed it. They're 30 to 35 seconds apart. Each joke is 30 to 30, maybe 40 seconds apart. That is insane. That is just too many jokes for a climactic action scene. I don't know. It's like when the movie was leading to something serious, most of the time it would crack a joke, and I couldn't take the movie seriously when I wanted to. This is the second problem. This is probably the biggest problem that this one movie has. And it's that it tries to set up so many future Marvel movies that it kind of forgets about this story. It kind of forgets about this movie. Like, the story, like the writing in the movie tries to set up future Marvel movies, and they just completely forget about what's happening in this movie. Like, they try to set up Captain America Civil War, Thor Ragnarok, and Avengers Infinity War. We all know these movies are coming, right? So why do you need to set up for it? Like, we listen to the news, we watch YouTube, like, most of the human population knows that these movies are coming, alright? So we don't need to fill this movie to the brim with Easter eggs and references to future movies that haven't even come out yet. Anyway, to sum up, this is a okay movie. It's got some really damn good action. One of my favorite moments is the Hulk versus Hulkbuster fight. That is a great moment. Also the Cap scene where he fights Ultron. The action is great. The acting is always good, and the villain is great. In my personal opinion, he is one of the MCU's best villains, alongside Loki, Fisk, um, Thanos. He is a good villain, right? But there are a lot of problems that come with this movie. But that's it, really. That's it for my review. It's a fun movie with a lot of problems that come along with it. But that's it. Um, anyway, that's it for this review. I will see you in the next one. I actually don't know what that one could be. I don't know if it's either season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Ant-Man. I don't know which one. But I will see you in whichever one it is.